So, who decides what you see in the news? I mean, really, who's pulling the levers of information in different countries around the world? How a society polices its press, well, it says a whole lot about its values, its government, and its people. Today, we're going to break down 4 classic theories that give us a framework for understanding all this, which is especially important for anyone trying to make sense of international affairs.
It really all boils down to this one fundamental question. Is the media's main job to make money, to serve the public interest, or is it to support the state? It's this really tricky balance between power, profit, and public service. And every single country has a different answer. The big ideas that try to answer this question, they're called normative theories.
Now, it's really important to get this straight. These are not scientific theories that predict what's going to happen. Think of them more like philosophical blueprints. They don't describe how media systems actually work, but how a society thinks they should work in a perfect world. It's all about the ideal relationship between the press, the government, and you, the people.
All right, let's start at one extreme end of the spectrum, authoritarianism. This is the model where you have maximum state control, where the government or a ruling elite is, for all intents and purposes, the editor-in-chief of everything.
So under this system, the press is definitely not a watchdog. It's more like a government lapdog. The core belief here is that the state is way more important than any one individual, and the main goal is to support the ruler and keep order. The media exists to serve the government, period. So any kind of criticism of the state, yeah, that's seen as a threat, and it is absolutely forbidden.
So how does this actually work? Well, control comes down to 2 main tools, licensing and censorship. The state gets to decide who can even have a media outlet. And if that outlet steps out of line, maybe by criticizing a government policy, boom, that license can be pulled, just like that. There's no such thing as a journalist's right to question the state.
And this picture, wow, this is just a chillingly perfect example of authoritarian censorship in action. On the left, you see an official, Nikolai Yezhov, with Stalin. But after he fell out of favor and was executed, he was literally erased from history, as you can see in the photo on the right. This isn't just about stopping a news story. It's about changing reality itself to fit whatever the state wants it to be.
And don't think this model is just ancient history. We see it today. When a government decides to block a website like WikiLeaks, arguing it's a matter of national security, what are they doing? They're using the exact same logic of authoritarianism. The state, and only the state, decides what information the public gets to see.
Okay, let's do a complete 180 and jump to the polar opposite. If authoritarianism is all about absolute state control, libertarianism is about absolute individual freedom. This theory is all about creating a completely open marketplace of ideas. Just look at this slide for a second. The contrast is pretty stark, right? On one side, the goal is to protect the state and control is held by the elite. On the other, the goal is to find the truth, and control is in the hands of the individual. And censorship, which is absolutely essential for authoritarianism, is completely forbidden in a libertarian system.
At the heart of this theory is this really deep trust in people. The argument is that humans are rational. If you just give them access to all the information, the good, the bad, and the really ugly, they're smart enough to sort through it all and figure out the truth for themselves. The government, in this view, needs to stay completely out of it.
And this quote, this really nails the whole spirit of the libertarian model. The idea is, if information is power, then the best way to stop tyranny is to give that power directly to the people, with no government filter getting in the way.
And here we are, back at WikiLeaks. But now we're looking at the other side of the coin. From the authoritarian view, it's a dangerous threat that has to be censored. But from a libertarian perspective, WikiLeaks is the ideal in action. It's giving the public raw, unfiltered information and then trusting them to make up their own minds about what their government is doing. Now, as you can probably guess, both of these extremes have some pretty big problems, right? Absolute control crushes any kind of free thought, but absolute freedom, well, that can lead to its own kind of chaos and a total disregard for the public good. So this led to some other theories that try to find a better middle ground.
So you get to the mid-20th century, and a lot of people started feeling like that pure libertarian model just wasn't cutting it anymore. This really influential commission came right out and said it. Freedom isn't enough on its own. It has to come with a sense of purpose, a duty to society.
And so, out of that way of thinking, we get the social responsibility theory. You can think of it as freedom with a conscience. The big idea here is that yes, the press should be free from the government, but it still has a serious obligation to the public. It's not enough to just report whatever. The media has a duty to be accurate, to be fair, and to give us context.
This is the model that really champions investigative journalism. The press as a fourth estate, holding power accountable wherever it is. Okay, so you might be asking, how do you enforce this responsibility without the government stepping in and censoring everyone? Well, the answer is self-regulation. Industry bodies like press councils get together to do this stuff. They create a code of conduct, they work to raise professional standards, they protect their own journalists, and, this is the important part, they hold their members accountable when they break that code. It's about accountability from within the profession itself, all for the public's benefit.
All right, on to our fourth and final theory. The Soviet media theory isn't really a compromise like social responsibility. It's a totally different model that was born out of the Russian Revolution. Now, on the surface, it looks a lot like the authoritarian model, but its stated purpose is very different. In this system, all media is owned by the state with zero private ownership. Its whole job is to be a tool to educate and mobilize the masses to achieve the Communist Party's goals. Now, I know that sounds a lot like the authoritarian model, and in practice, the control is just as absolute. But here's the key philosophical difference. Authoritarianism exists to protect the ruler's power. Soviet theory claimed to exist to advance the power of the working class.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. So let's pull it all together now and put these four theories side by side to make it all crystal clear.
This table really just lays it all out, doesn't it? Take a look at that key idea column, because that's where the magic is. Authoritarianism boils down to one word: control. Libertarianism is all about freedom. Social responsibility brings in that crucial idea of accountability, and the Soviet model sees the media purely as a state instrument. Each theory gives a completely different answer to that first question we asked: who should the media serve and why?
Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, these are interesting, but they were mostly developed during the Cold War. Why do they still matter today? Well, they are absolutely essential for understanding the world we live in right now.
For anyone studying international relations, or frankly, for anyone who just wants to be an informed citizen of the world, these frameworks are so important. They help you to decode why the media in China operates so differently from the media in the United States or Russia from the UK. They are the ideological blueprints behind the global news you read every single day. And all of this leaves us with a huge question, a really critical one for our time. In a world that's now dominated by algorithms, massive social media platforms, and the constant threat of fake news, what does an ideal media system even look like anymore? Which one of these theories, if any of them, can possibly guide us through the challenges of this new digital age? It's something we all need to think about.